You know, sometimes you just dread drawing a peg. Well, I drew that peg this week. So we're back again with another live match. This time we're back at Barbie Banks on the last of my little mini flurry there. Now there was a match that I didn't actually film a few weeks ago when it was absolutely red hot. Rob Wotton covered it on his channel. I ended up coming second again. Pop over to Rob Wotton Fishing to see that match. It was a red hot day, hard day, and I come second with like £65. Tough day at the venue, but it was just one of those hot days where the fish just seemed to switch off. We were second last week on peg 33, which I've just uploaded. And then this week, every single week, I'd push my barrow past peg 31 and I dread drawing it. It just looks so angry. You've got a bridge, you've got bushes, it just looks like one of those pegs where you're going to have a nightmare with losing fish. And this week I drew it. Now there's no issue, there's plenty of fish there, but it was just one of those, I was just dreading drawing it because I thought I'm going to break some tackle here, I'm going to lose some rigs. Anyway, we had a job to do, peg 31, and there was a howling wind down the straight. Absolutely howling, horrendous day. And the wind literally was bang down the lake, making how I want to fish quite tricky. You know, how I've been fishing is far bank, shallow, and on the bottom, and then later on in the margins. All of a sudden I'm thinking I might have to do some other things. Anyway, it was quite a narrow peg. I had this bridge to my left, very close to me, like a metre to my left. And I've got like a far bank that was quite nice, very deep though, 3.5 foot against the far bank. Then to my right I had more sedges, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, do what I did last week, load that up with pellets again, and then you might catch a run of fish shallow. And while the conditions weren't right for it, or perfect for it, I felt like, because it was narrow, I could still hold my pole long enough to get bites if I was prepared to gamble. Anyway, the match kicked off, and just the same as last week, I prepared a 4x14 and a 4x16 Cypri across. My Fury to my right hand edge, which looked really nice, much shallower this week, 18 inches touching the bank. If it was a bagging summer day, I'd have loved that edge. It was lovely, lovely little bay, nice and shallow. I thought, God, that looks good. And then to my left margin, because of the bridge, I only had a top kit of distance, but it was 3.5 foot down there. And I thought, do you know what, that might be a swim to nick an odd fish throughout the day. It looked a bit angry, there was some legs of the bridge and stuff, so I geared up, I put like a new prototype elastic on there. And I used that down there, and I thought, do you know what, I'll probably get a few bites down there all day. Because it was deep and I had the cover of the bridge, I thought probably catch a few fish down there. One thing I forgot to mention in last week's video, I caught some fish on a top kit and 1 the week before. It's something I've had no success with at all at this venue up until last week, so I put another line in today on top kit and 1. It was actually top kit 1.5, just how it plumbed up. There was a bit of a nicer slope to fish on. If I came any closer, it was quite steep, I didn't like that. It was just a bit more gradual as the further out I went. And plus, with the wind potentially getting up to really bad, I felt like I needed somewhere to go maybe to fish before the margins kicked in. Anyway, I started off bang in front of me under this willow tree. I decided to go in with 6mm pellets this week rather than my usual 4s. I just felt if I could be a bit more patient, sit over some 6mm and maybe get a cleaner bite, and it might just be a bit nicer, less foul-looked fish. And it gave me that option then of loading up the right-hand side with those pellets like I was talking about last week. And I had a great start. I caught a fish immediately, just tapping in like 10 6mm and sitting over it. I caught one straight away, and then next chuck in I caught a proper one, an 8-pounder, which led me a merry dance. It went under the bridge, it went round a bush, it went up the lake, down the lake, left, right, forward, backwards. Proper fish, that's right. It took me a merry dance. great big one, that's why. Wow. That's £7. Palaver. Black zip doing the job. And for anyone who ever doubts a 16B and 11 strength, this fish really tested it. I caught a few more fish under that bush, and it was really nice actually. Just feeding 6 mils, it was nice. The only problem was, as the wind was getting up, this willow tree was whacking my pole all the time, and it was knocking my rig out of position a lot. And it was getting worse as the match was going on. And all the time I'm thinking I need something else to do here, because potentially this could be a nightmare with this wind. It's quite apparent that these are decent fish in this lake. Come off it, I think. Fish there. Still, some more in the net. Better start than last week. And so I've been feeding that right hand spot, and I think I caught 6 off that straight initial spot, which was decent. Then I was starting to miss an odd bite, foul looking odd fish, getting trouble with this tree. So I thought, right, I'm going to go where I'm loose feeding. And that was quite nice. Even though I've been loose feeding it quite heavy, the fish were actually quite settled, and I got into a nice little routine of catching fish on that right hand spot. you what, this might be alright if I can just hold it in the wind there. It says as it gets stronger and stronger. Now all the time I'm fishing that, I'm throwing 6mm pellets short, I'm throwing 6mm pellets in the edge to my left. I dropped on that bridge one, and to be honest it was rubbish. I never had any signs on that whatsoever. It just didn't feel right all day for some reason, I'm not sure why. Maybe I should have fished it a little bit different. Also my top kitten, also my short pole swim at the bottom of that near shelf, again, it never felt right. It just, I'd sit there for ages, maybe get a bite, foul hook something and it'd come off. I did catch a couple of fish there, but small, ratty little fish that just again, it never felt right. It never felt like the fish were comfortable in that area. All the fish seemed to be across on this day. And it soon became apparent that that sort of right-hand spot in those sedges was the place I could get my best presentation with the wind. And also, there was plenty of fish there. So what I decided to do was settle into a nice routine of fishing on the bottom, feeding 4mm through the pot, feeding an odd one over the top with a catty with a view of maybe catching shallow at some point. And in the back of my mind I'm thinking this will just get stronger and stronger and eventually I'll have a golden spell at some point catching shallow. When the reality was the conditions were horrendous and I shouldn't have even been thinking like that. I should have just been taking what was coming with the pot. The only thing I will say, opposite me, it's in a different part of the lake, is like another arm, but I could see Danny Lamb. I couldn't see him, all I could see was his top kit, and I could see he was absolutely bagging up at this point. So he's my only point of reference, he's the only angler I can really see. And I'm thinking, well, if Danny's catching off a peg that isn't normally that great, then the rest of the venue could be fishing really well. And he was catching down the edge and literally every 5 minutes I could see him like battling what clearly were decent fish. So all the time I'm thinking, well, the only way I'm going to win here is either bag up in the edge or catch shallow. So I'm really forcing my shallow at this point. And I think I've sacrificed some fish on the bottom. I was catching, but I just got myself a little bit lost, a bit confused. I didn't know whether I should be fishing shallow or on the bottom. Shallow was hard because couldn't present my bait properly. The sedges had sort of blown over, making it really difficult to present. It was just, yeah, it was getting quite frustrating actually. I got a little bit stuck. My short line wasn't working, my left hand margin wasn't working, it was too early to feed my right hand edge. So I was plodding on this one spot across, and I'd kind of made a mess of it because I got too much bait in my peg. So I decided to sort myself out, stop loose feeding as aggressively, maybe think, right, Danny's just a runaway leader, there's nothing you can do about that. So I just plodded on across, and I was catching well, just catching nice and steady. Small fish though, no big uns, but odd goldfish, little carp and stuff. And it was just kind of petering out to nothing. So I fed my margin, my right hand edge, aggressively, thinking the shallow water, and again there was no signs. So what I decided to do, a bit like last week, I got my far bank rig, I plumbed up, I found a spot in 3 foot, probably 1.5 meters off the bank. I thought if they weren't coming shallow water, maybe they'll come there. And I just fed that with 6 mils, and it was a bit of a game changing moment for my match, whereas I was having a frustration across this little right hand margin in deeper water, sort of 3 and a bit foot. Actually saved my bacon on the day. Yeah. I'd like to have tried meat, to be fair, but I couldn't get to the shop. Yeah. They like it, don't they? Did you? Yeah. Well, like I say, I ruined my own peg trying to keep 2 on the go. Yeah. Just nothing could come in on it. There was fish sort of coming in, but they weren't sort of set with the odd fish coming in. So this swim was really good. What was happening, and it's something I learned quite a lot. It's something I learned quite a lot from them this day. What was happening was I could catch 2 or 3 dead quick, and it was the same the week before on that other swim. But because my island was so good that week, it didn't cross my mind as much, because I just go down there, nick a few fish, and then move and catch a few fish. But because my far bank swim on this day wasn't as productive, when my deeper margin slowed off after the 2-3 quick fish, I didn't have anywhere else to rotate it properly. And in hindsight, I think if I drew a peg where there wasn't a bridge right next to me, what I would do, I'd pick 2 spots, top kit and 3, maybe top kit and 4, down each edge, and I'd fish both of them in 3 foot, and I'd just try and rattle in 6 mils on each one, take 2 fish there, take 2 fish there, and rotate them. And I actually think you'd catch there from about the halfway point of the match. And especially now the temperatures are dropping, I think that could be a real good approach, because the fish want to come in the edge, but they don't want to come right in the shallows. And on this day, I fed in that 18 inches tight up against the bank, and I never had a bite in there. The fish just would not go up there. In fact, when they shouted time at 3:30, there was 1 fish there, but that is the only one that I saw all day. And it was all about that slightly deeper margin, getting away from the bank, down the slope a little bit, where the fish definitely seemed more comfortable. Anyway, I ended the day on £102, which actually, given the wind, the peg, the conditions, I was quite happy with. I've made a few mistakes. I definitely could have done things a little bit different. That deeper margin was brilliant, but given that I had nowhere else to rotate, I think I should have fished it further away from me. I think I fished it on a top kit and 2 on this day. If I could have maybe trimmed the bush a little bit, this is hindsight talking, trimmed the bush back a little bit, because you can do gardening at Barbie, get along the bank a bit more, maybe my runs of fish would have lasted a little bit longer, maybe. That left hand one, I actually think I should have fished pace down there. Because it was so close to me, I think the fish needed something. Hard pellets wasn't attractive enough to keep bringing them in. And I think if I'd have just fished really wet pace down there over a few micros, that would have probably pulled a few fish in. I could have maybe caught 7 or 8 carp down there throughout the day. The far bank was where I royally messed up though. I should have not even considered shallow fishing. I should have read the conditions better, read the fact that the wind was going to be a nightmare for shallow fishing, and not gambled on catting pellets into the... And I know I say this every single week, but after last week's shallow fishing where it was so effective, I must admit, it was always in the back of my mind thinking, any minute now I'm going to have this golden spell, shallow, and it never happened. There was an odd fish mooching in the grass, don't get me wrong, but it was nothing like the week before. Last week's peg was much better, but I still half expected a good spell at some point. And I guess you've got to gamble to win matches, and that was the gamble, and it didn't pay off, but it's something I've got in my mind. And now the temperatures are dropping, I can't see me even bothering now. Anyway, I ended on £102, which was 3rd on the day, so it ended me string of 4 or 5 seconds in a row at the venue, and I ended up dropping down to 3rd. But I was happy with that. Danny Lamb took it clean out with, I think it was 180 odd pound on that peg 62. Unfancied peg. However, with a strong wind, it kind of over his back, and maybe the fish were just tucked out of the way, out the wind a little bit, but he did it dead right, fishing in the edge. He caught over like micros and stuff, so brilliant show. Simon Mallier was 2nd with like 140 odd pound, right the way around on peg 48, which is right around the other side of the lake. The peg numbers are all over the place, so I'll put a little graphic on to show you where the pegs are. But yeah, 3rd place, happy with that. But now as I sit here, the temperatures are definitely dropping. We're getting heavy dew sort of mornings, single figures at night, sort of low doubles in the day. And I think the fishing could be on the change over the next few weeks. So I'm going to probably pop back to the Barbie a couple more times before the sort of change. The low fishing's kind of starting. The chub fishing's kind of starting soon. I can't wait for those two as well. I really, like I've said a million times before, I love all aspects of fishing, and this time of year is like I get really excited because those styles sort of creep up on me. But I'm going to keep obviously match fishing. I think I'm going to try and find some silverfish matches over the winter, obviously to keep the action. I do actually fancy a bit of winter carping as well, so Makins is an option. They do some really nice midweekers on like Lake 2 and stuff, bit of bomb fishing, bit of rod fishing, maybe even a bit of waggler fishing. Shrewsbury Valley is obviously always an option in the winter. Holly Farm, that's a venue that I just keep hearing more and more good things about. So definitely think I'm going to be going there because there's a lot of F1s to catch, probably a bit of maggot fishing. So I think that could be a place to go quite a bit in the winter. So we've got options as well as me chub and me lure fishing that I absolutely love. So thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Loads of videos coming, loads of videos planned. It's going to be a really good few months.